actually, it's an endurance race also for the hardware. But looks like we didn't receive an email with people claiming, okay, you have to pay me back my graphics card because I burned it because of your game. So
set on fire.
Fingers crossed.
All right, listen up, friends. This week, you're going to need a lot of endurance because it won't be your run-of-the-mill show. We are going the extra length, or at least our topic does that. But first, quick reminder for you guys to subscribe to our channel. And if you like what you see, make sure to also hit that like button to get even more esports racing content. The 24 Hours of Spa was last week, so what better to look at than endurance races? Driving in shifts and racing over the course of 24 hours? We all heard how this is from the driver's side already, but what about the developer? What does a game need to stomach this kind of races? Are there any major differences to consider? But before we answer these questions, let's catch everyone up to speed and take a look at the mammoth that is endurance racing.
24 hours of Le Mans, 24 hours of Daytona, 12 hours of Sebring. These are the world's most famous endurance races. But it's not only 12 and 24-hour competitions that are classed as endurance races. Even one lasting 6 hours or more falls right into this category. This type of racing is one of the most taxing kinds there are. Compared to your typical races, an endurance race has some significant differences. As one person simply can't race non-stop for such a long time, each team is made up of different drivers who switch during the races. The time each driver spends in the car is called a stint. Depending on the rules of the competition, you often find teams made up of 4 members, but some crazy competitions will go as low as 2. Even with a team of 4, each individual still has to drive for long periods. Staying concentrated, as well as being able to instantly find your flow in the car after a driver switch, can be a Herculean effort, even for the best. Endurance racing requires a lot of experience, and as such isn't something any run-of-the-mill racer can just do. In endurance racing, you'll find the cream of the crop, and it's not only the human side that's under massive pressure. Especially in sim racing, the server has to run over extended periods, flawlessly and with no major hiccups. Just like the racers themselves, the gear also has to be on par for the duration. So the intensity and length of the competition puts a strain on both human and machine. But if you can take the pain, you reap the gain.
Now that all the basics are in the clear, it's time to introduce this week's guest. Who better to have in the studio with me than the founder of Kunos Simulazioni, Marco Massarutto. Hey Marco, thanks for taking your time and joining us in our talk about endurance races.
Hi there, nice to meet you, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Marco, tell us a bit about yourself and give us a little overview about Kunos.
Well, I'm one of the 2 founders of Kunos Simulazioni. The other one is Stefano Casillo. We joined this big journey more than 17 years ago with other 4 people, and now there are more than 30 people working with us at Kunos Simulazioni. So it's been a very long journey, but it worked well, I would say.
Marco, as you know, we're talking about endurance races in this week's episode. What is your opinion about endurance races?
Well, I started to get interested in it a few years ago, thanks to an Italian commentator, a speaker of the Le Mans race. So the first Le Mans race I saw entirely was the one in 2014 or 2015, and I get always much more interesting there. So, for example, when after Assetto Corsa 1, we decided with Stefano, we start a discussion about, okay, what do we do now? We take in consideration the endurance racing, right, because it's a very complete kind of race, because there are several kind of cars, and you can compete in a very challenging kind of race. In our case, with the SRO GT Challenge, we have the possibility to run several kinds of endurance racing, from a 3-hour race to a 24-hour race, specifically in Spa-Francorchamps, for example. So, by this point of view, we gave to people the possibility to race on different kind of layers, also to feed different kind of users, and looks like that it worked very, very well.
Let's talk about more from the developer side. Is there a point in developing a racing sim where you have to make the conscious decision of implementing like the different racing types?
Well, we try to stay in touch with the community so much in order to understand what people would like to see in a next feature, in a next product, and so on. We saw in Assetto Corsa 1 that a lot of people were asking for endurance racing. That was something that was missing in the field in our first game, because we missed the 24 hours race cycle. So in the next product, we decided that night racing, for example, will have to be there at any cost. And the GT Challenge driven by SRO perfectly fit with our design and with the audience design. So at the end, we chose it for this direction, and we don't have regrets about it.
It's really great to hear always when you're talking to people who work in sim racing that they really clearly hear what the community has to say, and they design the games how the community loves it, and they take the feedback of the community really seriously. I really love that part of sim racing very much. Is there anything you have to look out for in an endurance race, having, for example, a server up and running for such a long time?
Well, sure, but the very first thing you need to make sure is that you can create a software that is reliable.
Yeah.
Is a software that can run possibly for 24 hours without crashing, without major issues. And as you can imagine, this is a huge challenge, because it needs a lot of testing. And you need to have also the tools for testing that allow you to understand if and where the game has crashed, and sometimes this can take hours, because you could run a competition for, 12, 18 hours without a problem, or 23 hours without a problem, and you get a crash because you go out of memory at the 23rd hour. And this could be a disaster, especially when you have to lead an official esport competition like the ones we are leading with SRO. So the first thing you need to make clear and sure is that you have a software that is reliable and that can run with no issues or big issue for a lot of time. This is the very first thing. The second part is absolutely related to the net code and to the server code, because you need to make also the server very reliable and capable to collect as much as data as possible. And this is not easy at all. But our guys, they did a tremendous job that required a lot of blood to be done. But we lost some guys on the field, but at the end, the game works.
Imagine having a game crashed after 23 or 24 hours. So you actually test it out for more than 24 hours. It's a lot about testing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a plenty good number of testers.
Yeah.
Many of them are volunteers, and they run the game for a lot of time in order to find the way how it can crash. Actually, they try to make it crashing. That for them can be fun and not for us, because every time we need to get back to the coding, understanding the kind of issue we are having and find a way to solve it. On console, because our games run also on console, this is even more challenging, because we have much more limitations in terms of server capability, memory, video RAM, and so on. You can also imagine that a game like Competizione pushes the hardware and the graphics card a lot.
Yeah.
And you can imagine how can be tough for a graphics card to run a game like Competizione for 24 hours. So actually it's an endurance race also for the hardware.
Yeah.
But looks like we didn't receive any mail with people claiming, okay, you had to pay me back my graphics card because I burned it because of your game. So
set on fire.
Fingers crossed. Correct. Or my house get burned because of your game.
That's a good one. So yeah. Obviously, endurance racing is not really for beginners, but if there would be beginners, so somebody saying, okay, I have experience in sim racing and now I want to try out endurance racing, do you have any tips for them? Is ACC the right game for starting endurance racing?
Well, you are asking to the winner if the wine is good, but I would say that there are a lot of racing simulations that are absolutely capable to host and let people joining endurance racing in a very good way. So it's not just competizione, even if I would say that a key point of competizione is that it has been designed specifically for this kind of racing. That is different than using another kind of simulation or game that can have also the endurance, like could be Assetto Corsa 1, for example. So competizione has been designed and conceived right to support this kind of racing. A tip for the drivers, I would say that is not so different than what the real drivers should do.
Yeah.
I mean, being a good driver doesn't mean necessarily that can be a very good endurance driver, because the strength point of an endurance race is the constancy. You don't need just to be faster, but you need to be reliable as well as your car. You need to make as less as mistakes as possible, and you need to be very constant, and you need to be able to read a race that is very, very long.
Yeah.
So my personal tip, but I'm not an expert personally for endurance racing, and I don't believe I could be a good one on this kind of competitions, but I believe that have a training that can help you to be fast and constant is the very first key for the success.
Okay, Marco, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. Is there anything you want to share with the community? Here's your time to shine.
Well, what I can say is that we are receiving a lot of questions recently about the future of the Assetto Corsa franchise or Assetto Corsa Competizione, and today I'm glad to say you that our aim is to continue to support actively Competizione also for the future. So you can expect to have more news and content soon for this part of the Assetto Corsa franchise.
We also have to highlight you guys, because it doesn't happen often that you guys can't decide what you prefer. On YouTube, you were ACC all the way, but Twitter was more nuanced, with even a win for iRacing as the best endurance racing game. So good to see that there's still some heated competition. That's it already for today's Nitro Nights show. As always, I really hope you enjoyed watching. If you have any feedback, just let us know in the comments below. We see each other again in 2 weeks. Until then, stay safe and buckle up. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you missed out the last one, you can watch it right here. We've talked about F1 2021 with Thea Musant, or just check out our endurance racing guide with Jardier. Enjoy watching and see you next time.